Good evening, everybody, and welcome to LETV, Channel 15. We have a special program tonight. I've got a couple of special guests. We're missing a couple of people that were supposed to be here. They had problems. They couldn't make it. I'm sorry for that. Rick Comfort, the guru of hockey around not just Lynn, but virtually Massachusetts, and Paul Helen, former editor at the Lynn Item. But we've got three capable gentlemen who can look back on the history of sports here in Lynn. Gary Zemarowski, former coach in name a school. Frank Carey, from the winningest coach in New England baseball from North Reading. And Steve Krause, just recently retired, but longtime sports editor at the Item. Basically what we're doing, we have a number you can call, 596-1905.
Oh, no.
You can get involved in this program. You can call in and make nominations of your own. What we're looking to do is, I've often wondered about this. I look at Mount Rushmore, and I see Mount Rushmore, and I see the four presidents, the faces of the four presidents on the mountain. And I wonder what would happen if say at Frazier Field up on the hill, if we put pictures of four athletes, or if we went in Frazier Field or Manning Field, or if we put a plaque coming into the city up high on a pole, who would be who would get the most votes for who should be up on that platform? All the great athletes, and we've had so many. We go back many years. Steve Krause and I will go back a little bit further than Frank Carey and Gary Zemarowski, but they'll talk about some of the great athletes as well. You can call in and make your suggestions as to who you think who the great athletes in Lynn are, and we're doing it for both male and female. We were going to do it for baseball, basketball, hockey, and football with the males, but we knew we'd get in trouble if we didn't have a program for the females as well. So we moved it to softball and soccer and the other programs that the young ladies play, and they've done it very well over the years. We've had some great female athletes as well. So without further ado, I'll start with Steve Krause down the end, because we'll start with going back several years and talking about some of the real old timers. And I'll get it started with like Boldy Dansowitz, outstanding football player. George Bullard, who played around the time that Harry Aganis did, obviously Harry Aganis, but there's been some great athletes, Steve Krause, over the many years from the city.
Going back, way back, I like to tell this story when it comes to old Lynn baseball players. My dad went to Saugus High, but his coach at Saugus High was Bernie Freiberg, Lynn baseball player. You know, so I knew an awful lot about Bernie because of that. I don't go back. I tend to want to talk about people that I've seen, but I also have to, you know, there are people like Jim Hegan, who was the catcher for the 1954 Indians. They won 111 games. This guy caught Bob Lemon, and Bob Feller and Bob Lemon. He caught them both.
Eddie Lopat, too.
Yep. And Boldy, Mecca Zemarowski, all those guys. I mean, right now, I think there's one, if you're talking about a Mount Rushmore, there's one that you just have to concede. So this is really an election for the three other ones, because obviously the top one will be Harry Aganis.
Yeah, that's absolutely true.
I don't think there's any dispute about that.
I'm going to run quickly over some names, and that's basically what we're going to do. We're going to name some names. I'm going to run some through here, thanks in part to hopefully my memory, and to Jeff Newhall too, who couldn't be here because he's on vacation. But I'm looking at some of the female athletes. I'm looking at Tori Fayetta, who was an All-American basketball player. Brianna Rudolph, basketball player. Abby Gauthier, who was the all-time leading scorer, male or female, in the state. Courtney Winters, who was a great hockey player. Amanda Webster, who went on to play big-time soccer, I think out on the West Coast. Kerry Domahowski. Mia Nowicki was an outstanding pitcher in softball. Shannon Murphy, basketball and softball. I looked, the three best third basemen I have ever seen in my life they were almost back to back. Colleen Clancy, Jen Earp, and Miss Freya, who is still, I still see every once in a while because she comes to watch her brother play for St. Mary's. Those are three ladies that were outstanding athletes and outstanding third basemen. And of course, we just had some great players play. Lily Newhall just had a great year for St. Mary's pitching. And Frank Carey, you know one of them, Sharon Nicosia, who a good friend of ours, former teammate, Tony Nicosia, his relative, was an outstanding player.
Yeah, I think she was like really the first and very, very prominent female athlete in the city of Lynn. I believe Lynn Classical, you know, she was good enough to probably have played at some of the local high school baseball teams.
You look at,
Well, I remember from Tech, it was Donna Mills.
yes.
Oh, yeah.
Jane Mills was
Yeah, then she went on to be a
Rose
coach.
Wooten. She
Yeah.
was a catcher.
Yeah.
Donna
Pitcher.
Mills played big time softball.
Yeah.
You know, Nicosia, and there were many that played.
Those guys.
Some of them could very easily have played. Katie Burt. Katie Burt was the young lady who competed with the guys in Little League in the home run hitting contest and beat them.
Right up
As-
until she was 15, right up until she was in the last year of Babe Ruth, she played with on the boys' teams.
Yeah, and they won the Gallant tournament almost every year. And she went on to play, she's still playing big-time hockey. And she was almost, if not part of the Olympics.
Yeah.
She was a great female athlete,
I don't know
so
why she didn't make it, but
yeah, she was very close.
My last sighting of Katie Burt, John, I went to a BC baseball game, and there under the disguise or whatever, the costume of the BC Eagle, you know, the BC Eagle came up to me and said, "Hi, Coach Carey, how are you?" And I went, and she took the helmet off, and it was Katie Burt as the mascot for the baseball game.
She used to be down in right field chasing the foul balls at the Boston
Yes.
Red Sox also. And
she made a couple of good stabs at those Red Sox.
she made great
Yeah.
plays that people celebrated. They gave her a round of applause. I'm going to name some names that you guys will certainly recognize from the past and recent past, but we've got, obviously we're talking about Harry Aganis being one of the major baseball players, but Tony Conogliaro played at St. Mary's. Frank, you were a teammate of Tony's, and he was the youngest major league player. He had 100 home runs. We've got Skippy Falasco, who was on that team.
You mentioned that.
I worked with Skippy at the Boston Herald. In fact, I got him in the Boston Herald. They came to watch Tony C, and they signed Skippy Falasco because they said, he's a pretty good player.
The interesting thing about that team, John, playing on the same team with Conogliaro, who could hit a ball a country mile, Falasca could hit him equally as far. In Legion, we had Bobby Nash from Lynn Classical.
Oh, yeah.
So between those three long ball hitters, it allowed guys like Arabino, Nicosia, Devon, and Carey to get all the bloop singles in the world between the infield and the outfield. They actually helped our batting averages because the outfielders played so deep. Those were, to separate which one of those three could hit the ball the furthest, I would be at a loss to select one over the other.
Coach was not bad at that time either, wasn't he?
I'm sorry.
The coach for that Legion team wasn't too bad.
Nipper Clancy. Nipper was quite a colorful coach in his own right, and at the time considered to be the top baseball coach in the area.
Did you ever beat him around the bases when you had to run to third, he ran to first?
Well, that was we never could figure that out, not being rocket scientists, but Nipper used to challenge everybody on the team to a foot race. And there was some very formidable, you know, going back in that name from the past, Johnny Silvarnik when he
Sure.
played at Post 6 before our time, Billy Devon, who was a speedster, and guys like Nicosia. He would run the bases from home to first to second to third to home. He made us, not that I ever qualified for that category, but he made the other speedsters run third to second to first to home. So they weren't conditioned to run that
They
way.
weren't taking, they had to take right turns. He
They
took
were
left.
going to the, I mean, he would beat everybody, every speedster on the team by 20 feet, 30 feet, and then just laugh. We couldn't figure it out till one day, you know, someone figured out we're running the wrong direction.
I'm looking at the two gentlemen who have come, you have to talk about them together because they've come a long way together. Derek Dana and Timmy Filer, they won back-to-back championships. Dana was the catcher, Timmy Filer was the pitcher.
Yeah.
They won back-to-back championships with our friend, former teammate Jimmy Jettis coaching St. Mary's. And now they turn around, they've won a few height championships, and now they've won, again, back-to-back championships.
You know, I had in my notes, John, and not to belabor this, but if I was going to do the baseball segment, I could only talk about the players that I've either seen or coached against. We all know about Harry Aganis, Mike Pazek, George Bullard. Those are legendary baseball players. But going back to, I mentioned in high school Tony C., Bobby Nash, and Skippy, but then going up into the early 80s or so, you know, I coached Shoemaker Post 345. We had some outstanding players on that team, most notably Dickie Newton, who's the athletic director now at Lynn English, as well as I think one of the finest shortstops that I think I ever coached between North Reading High and Lynn, Jimmy Finocchio, who I was surprised did not get drafted. And Jimmy had an opportunity to play in the Cape League, but he needed his summer job, and he forego. What's the word? He didn't do it. He didn't play down the Cape because he had to work, and as a result, I think that may have hurt his chances of being drafted. But anyways, he was outstanding shortstop, and we had a couple of other really good players on that team. A pitcher named Mark Ricka, who went on, Lynn English won the state championship with him as a pitcher, and a very relatively unsung player was a kid both in basketball and in baseball, Freddie Fabrizio. Freddie became our #1 pitcher in the year we lost in our state finals. So taking that up to 80, in the late 80s, the North Reading teams had an opportunity to play the great St. Mary's team of Derek Dana, Timmy Filer, and company. And I'll never forget the name of Joe Dowling. No one will know Joe Dowling, but Joe made a sensational catch. The winner of our game, North Reading, St. Mary's, we felt was going to go on to the state championship.
Was that 1-0?
It was 1-0 on a contested call by the losing coach. And
I can't believe it. I can't believe
at
it.
home plate, as a matter of fact. And you know, between Derek and Timmy, you just weren't going to steal any bases if you were a base running team. So that was those two certainly would be in my category of all-time greats. And then moving up a little further in the Clancy tournament, we talked earlier about a skinny little fragile second baseman who went on to about a 15-year career in the majors, Kenny Hill. And equally as good, if not maybe even a better athlete than Kenny, might be a bone of contention in the Hill family, was Tony Hill. Tony Hill, as you know, signed with the Red Sox, but he also was a defensive back at University of Rhode Island and so forth and so on. And we had an opportunity, or at least I did have an opportunity to play with softball with Tony. And last, probably was Ben Bowden, who was, a recent graduate of Lynn English. He got called up just recently. I saw in the transaction.
He's not bad, Frank. I mean, English. Then you go to Vanderbilt, and you win the national championship, and you get drafted, and you go, and now you're moving up the ladder very quickly.
Yep, don't forget to mention that he went to the baseball camp during the summer.
How could we forget that?
I'm going to throw out a name.
All of these guys did, didn't they? All these great players went to the camp.
I'm going to throw out a name that, unfortunately, he's no longer with us. But for a couple of years when he was with Lynn English, he was untouchable, and that was Leo Estabrook.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yes. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Leo.
Yep. He was very good. Now, you mentioned briefly Dick Newton. He was an outstanding pitcher at English. He went down Florida and pitched
Played at
big
Eckerd.
time in college. Came back, became a very good coach.
He played at St. Leo's.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
became a very good coach at
Yeah.
Marblehead and taught a lot of kids. And now he's working with kids again as an athletic, doing a great job. He just did a tremendous job too in these difficult COVID-19 times with the sports in the city of Lincoln.
He's also a good umpire too. I would say he's
Yeah,
he was one of
he still does
good
it.
judgment.
Yeah, he still does it. Before I get to Gary, I'm going to go through some of these names. Like Thad Broughton's one of the elite, I think the all-time leading scorer for St. Mary's, going over 1,000 points. Peter Gray was a great player, basketball player as well. And you guys will probably remember Calvin Johnson and Abraham Toe were two running backs that just recently graduated a few years ago at St. Mary's.
Calvin Johnson's father, Calvin Johnson.
Going back a few years, Nicky Consolis
Yeah.
was an outstanding football player. Ray Basterak, who we see quite a bit, does quite a bit in the city and for the city. He was an outstanding hockey player. We just saw Christian Emmerich
Yeah.
get his name in the paper and being involved in golf.
Golf, yeah.
Was a golfer at St. Mary's. And of course, Mark Lee, outstanding hockey coach and player at St. Mary's. And a
I
name,
coached him.
baseball Frank, Christian Howard,
Oh, gee.
outstanding pitcher who went on to
Yeah,
pitch for the
I'll
Red
try to
Sox.
forget him. Yeah, Christian. Yeah, you mentioned Peter Gray. Can I tell you
Sure,
a little anecdote
sure.
about that? I knew Peter's father. Peter played up in Rockport High School.
Yep.
And his father and I were talking one day, and he said, "Geez, I'm looking for a school, maybe for my son to transfer out." And I said, "Well, I don't know if you realize this, but Vinny Olivo is now the coach at St. Mary's." Now, Vinny, when he was at
Outstanding.
North Reading,
The
developed
gas
his own
masks.
reputation within the
masks.
Cape
And it was an outstanding.
He had it
outstanding
all.
too.
Yeah.
It was
Tennis
outstanding
rackets.
too.
Yeah, the tenant, he had the gas masks on his players to get. It was, anyways. So Pete's father, who was very friendly with Vinny, didn't know that he was there, and said, "That's it. I'm sending my son to St. Mary's to play for Vinny Olivo. Except he can't wear the gas mask in practice, But that's an inside joke. But so Peter went on to St. Mary's, as you know, and had a tremendous career.
Well, I guess he did. And we talked about Trevor Howard, Christian Howard. But those are some of the names from St. Mary's that I made notes of. And Gary, if we switch over to a little bit to football, you've certainly had your share of seeing and hearing and knowing about a lot of the football players, the great football players all the way through, even up until now.
Well, Pistol Pete Pedro. We gotta mention
He was
him.
a teammate of Frankie and I.
Very good friend.
He was
My first
West
meeting
Texas
with
Flash.
First meeting with Peter Pedro, I was playing shortstop before I became a mediocre pitcher. They hit a pop-up. I caught it one step out on the grass, not on the grass, still on the dirt. I caught the pop-up. Peter was at third base. I turned, looked at him and said, "Go ahead, I dare you." And he looked at me with a big smile on his face and he dropped his hands. So I dropped my hands. Next thing I knew, he was sitting on the bench. He tagged up and scored. I didn't have a chance to get my hand up. That was my first meeting with Peter Pedro.
he could fly.
First time I saw him, he was running back kickoffs of the Patriots in an exhibition game.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Peter would have gained about 8,000 yards a season if you counted going back and forth and tried until he finally got around and wasn't able to get
he
around the corner.
exhausted those big defensive linemen, and they didn't take off.
When we played at St. Mary's with Nipper Clancy coaching, both St. Mary's and Lynn Trade, as they were known in those days, used the corner diamond at Barry Park. And when Trade was playing, Nipper would say, "Okay, time out in practice. We're going to all go down and watch Pete Pedro on the bases." So we'd take the whole team down in the cement bleachers down there, and Peter would be on first base. The coach, Barry, was no signals, and Peter would just get out there and take off, and you could see Coach Barry was a little exasperated because He didn't give him any signal. He just went. And a couple of times, Pete would just, when the coach started doing the signal, Peter would just go like this, and like he was on his own. He'd steal second, steal third. And we'd be up in the stands roaring, laughing. He put on a show for us all the time.
Most people don't know that Peter also played basketball, and he was a Golden Gloves boxing champion.
Yes.
He was on my Sports Weekly program one time, and I said, here's the trivia question for tonight. Who's the only Lynn athlete to play basketball, football, baseball, play for the Patriots, and be a Golden Gloves boxing champion? And Peter was up waiting to come on to be a guest. People calling in, answering, they couldn't, they never got Peter
No
Pedro.
kidding.
They
Oh.
never, and when he come on, they were surprised.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Gary.
Good man.
I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. I think the first one that I coached way back when was Tony Thurman. Tony Thurman in football was he played basketball and everything too, but he was the only consensus All-American at Classical. He was on that Bob Hope show
Yeah.
when it was a big deal. So I think he led the nation or the league in interceptions.
It was the nation.
And so he's
Remember that interception in the end zone at Alabama? When they
Yeah.
saved the game for BC when they went down there and won?
Yeah, he was.
I saw a game. I saw them play at where was it? Oh, at Foxborough, and they were playing Alabama, and the lightning came.
Lightning.
yeah.
Yeah, I was
Lightning
at
came.
that game.
Yeah,
Lightning
all of a
snow.
sudden, everyone took off, and that was the end. That was the end of the game. It was terrible.
His brother Eddie was a pretty good athlete too.
Well, Eddie was the quarterback
Quarterback.
on the team. The same, I look at that team,
That 76 team.
yeah, Eddie Thurman, Junior Guy.
Oh,
Junior Guy was
I just interviewed Junior for the Hall of Fame at Classical.
Yeah.
And his son is going to make in the Hall of Fame at St. John's Prep.
right,
He's not
right,
there anymore.
yeah.
He's not.
I don't know.
No, he is.
Who else do I get?
Wasn't
I
Jay
got the
Alacuda on
Acres.
that 76 team?
Alacuda was,
Alacuda,
yes,
yeah.
yeah. He used to kick extra points. Here's a story. We're over in Winthrop, and DeFelice is coaching, and we're over there, and it comes down to like a field goal, and we don't have a tee. So we borrowed the tee. We borrowed the tee from Bobby DeFelice. He gets the tee. He kicks the field goal. We win the game. And I guess the story was that DeFelice takes the tee. You take that goddamn tee. Take the tee. And he whipped it again. Whipped it over to the sideline. He was livid, but he kicked the extra point. He used to kick the extra points. Yeah.
There must have been some loud discussions in that DeFelice house.
Oh, yeah.
Oh. But I look at Lewis Reynolds. Lewis Reynolds, he played at BC.
Yeah.
Along with, hey, there's a lot of guys here. The Akers brothers. Arthur Akers was a man amongst boys.
Didn't
I
Arthur
coached
and
him.
Alacuda both go out to the West Coast and play for UCLA or Southern Cal?
Arthur went to UCLA.
Arthur,
Yeah.
UCLA.
And Jeff Akers went to Michigan.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the Akers boys were.
Jeff's a very,
I had those guys.
Jeff's
I
a
Yeah.
very
coached those
sought
guys.
after college.
No wonder you won
referee, too.
games.
Is he really?
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
In football?
that was with
Yeah.
Bill Wise.
Yeah.
That was my first stint.
That was unbelievable.
Who
Oh,
else
he's
was there?
on probation.
As we move,
He's my daughter's boss.
Emerson Foster was another great receiver. He went on, had a great career. I think he went to the University of Rhode Island.
Yes, he
Emerson
did.
Foster, right?
Followed in my footsteps.
Yeah. Along with me and my.
I hope he.
Hey, I went down there, and actually my daughter went down there.
Yeah,
And
that's right,
I
that's
can't
right.
believe that they let her in.
Yeah. That was.
Yeah, she played
Jeez.
soccer down there.
She did? I didn't.
Yeah. Hey, after the Akers, we move along. One of the best linemen that I coached was Dan Dufour.
Ooh, another one that went out to the West Coast, I think.
Dan Dufour,
UCLA.
he went to UCLA, and he got drafted by the Atlanta Falcons. He was a long snapper. Too,
Yep.
you know, he,
Outstanding.
yeah, he was.
There's always a job if you're a long snapper.
Yeah, that's what I did. And then as we move along to Timmy Frazier. Timmy Frazier scored 4 touchdowns as a freshman.
I was going to say, he was the first
In the
freshman
classical English.
really
Yes.
significant player
Yeah.
because back in those days, you only played 10, 11, and 12.
Yeah,
And he came on when they let ninth graders play,
yeah,
and he played like a senior.
yeah, yeah. He played. He was something.
How about, excuse me, Gary, how about, I'm just thinking of a name, and might be remiss, Eddie Anderson?
Oh, EA. Yeah,
he was,
yeah. Eddie Anderson.
he's
Yeah,
up-
he was with all those guys.
yeah,
I
Eddie
got
Anderson.
to know a lot of these guys very well because a lot of
Yeah,
these guys I
Eddie,
coached
EA.
in CYO basketball.
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, Eddie,
I think when you're done with classical, I got a couple of English names, but yeah.
Well,
Just
Go ahead.
no, go with the classical guys before I swing into English.
Yeah.
When I was down at English.
Gordon Laro at English.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Landry, the Landry.
Yeah, Eric and,
I
Yeah.
remember the picture of Gordon Laro when he went to Michigan when he was recruited.
Yeah.
He was standing in the field, and they come up and they had
Ah,
the
Crowley
crowd
coached those
roaring,
guys.
and they brought him in the locker room, and they showed the carpeted locker room, and everything was like multi-million-dollar stuff. And look, he's out there going, "What the heck is this?" 100,000 people roaring when he was standing at them. That's the way they recruited those guys back in those days.
That was a team that almost did it. They lost in Swampscott on the Bloxage bomb. Remember that? The Swampscott won on the last play of the game to beat English.
Well, they were back-to-back. That first year, Steve, they couldn't have gone to the Super Bowl
Yeah.
because the teams that they beat didn't have enough points
Right. Yeah,
for them to be able to go.
That was the
Now everybody goes.
No, but
Then the year after that,
What are
they
they,
did go.
16?
yeah,
That's awful.
that was
That was Malaya's
it's
first
crazy.
year as a coach.
crazy.
yeah, that was Chris Warren throwing the
Yeah.
touchdown pass. It was funny because Swampscott beat them on the last second pass play when 2 defenders came together and fell down, and Howard's brother caught the pass and won the game for Swampscott. The following year, English could go to the Super Bowl, and it was 0-0, and Chris Warren stepped back and threw the pass, and 2 Swampscott defenders came together.
It was Jim Todd who caught it.
Yeah, Todd caught the pass and went in the end zone, and English won and went to the Super Bowl that year.
Yeah.
That was the Bloxage bomb and the
Yeah.
Manning Bowl miracle. That
Yeah.
Right.
I got both of those, my voice on Mike Lynch's program, because Mike being from Swampscott put both of those things. The second year, he put the 2 together and put them on.
Mentioning Clark Crowley. He was a tremendous football player.
I guess he was. He
You know?
was a pretty good coach, too.
Yeah. Well, he coached these guys in English. That's what I was there when these guys. Brian Vaughn. Brian Vaughn was
Yeah.
went to Northeastern, set all kinds of records there. Now he's coaching. He coached at Pope John, and then he went to.
Coach, yeah,
Yeah.
now
He went
Northeastern
there.
doesn't have football.
Yeah, he had a great career.
Yeah, he
set
did.
Yeah, he was my next door neighbor for a while. He's a very good friend of my daughter.
I had Chris Warren on there as the quarterback on
Yeah.
on that.
Yeah, he
Super
turned
Bowl
out, he
team.
did well. He went on. He
He
kind of.
works right here.
He kind of
Oh, no, he's at
classical.
classical.
He kind of moved over. He went from English to classical.
Yeah.
He traded uniforms, but
I did not know until Chris himself told me that he and Rick Drizzling were cousins. Speaking
Really?
of a name.
I didn't know that either.
Yeah.
Yeah,
he and
Ricky was,
Drizzling were cousins.
That was unfortunate. Ricky had that tremendous game, over 250 yards against
Northeast Region.
Northeast Region when they played on a Saturday.
Still give that out.
and
Yeah.
I knew him again. A young kid who I coached in CYO. I wasn't going to say, come up and we'll do an interview because it was freezing cold. It was below 0, I think. And I said, I'll get you on Sports Weekly after Thanksgiving. He never made it because he had that accident on
Yeah.
Chatham Street.
Yeah, we were,
I think you might be talking about him in this pantheon of athletes, though, if he had gone on. you
Oh,
know.
that's for sure.
Yeah.
He was the first big-time show that we did honoring
Yeah.
people that were lost, great people that were lost in the city.
I was coaching at Tech then, John, and obviously on the sidelines during that Northeast Regional game, when Ricky was a one-man show.
Yeah.
But the thing that I recognized and I was most impressed about was the fact that whenever he got tackled, not only in that game but other games, and he was the stud, he would tap the kid on the butt and say, like, nice tackle, you know, that sort of thing. And here he was just single-handedly destroying the team that he played against. But his sportsmanship was, you know, unbelievable. And we were devastated when we got the call the next morning.
I was
from his
driving to work
family.
and I almost drove off
I'll
the
never
road.
forget Brownie.
Yeah, we were.
Jimmy
we were
Brown. I never saw a guy so disconsolate.
Yeah, like I said, I almost drove off the road when I was driving to work the next morning. But Frank, Ricky was like that. He always looked like
he
like
was-
when he played little CYO basketball, he had to bring his birth certificate because they always thought he was overage.
Yeah, he had a mustache.
Yeah,
he was
because
like 12 years
he
old
always
with a
looked older.
mustache.
He always
Built
looked
like-
older. And they'd
Yeah.
come and as they walk into us,
Yeah.
I'd say, here, before you even come to
yeah.
me, here's his birth certificate. Because he always looked like he was older.
Yeah, he's a terrific kid.
But looking back now on guys that play basketball, going to another sport, I look at a very good friend of mine who still has the honor of scoring more points than anybody in a basketball game in the North Shore. That's Eddie Robinson. And he went on to be a captain not only as a senior but as a junior, 2-year captain
Yale.
at Yale. And not only that, he was one of the nicest guys in the world.
Dr. Eddie Robinson.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Came
he was
back to class with him 2
absolutely
years ago.
outstanding.
With E.A. Robinson.
Oh.
Anderson.
I grew to really love high school basketball when
Yep.
I coached it. When I covered it. A lot of good people, boys and girls. I have to throw out a name that hasn't been mentioned yet, and we would be remiss if we didn't. And that's Helen Ridley.
I was just about to say
Yeah,
that.
Helen
Yeah.
Ridley was the real deal, and probably I still think today, you know, there have been some great girls basketball players in this city over the last 10 years, but I still think Helen Ridley's the standard bearer for them. Just a tremendous player.
She's like Eddie Robinson. She still holds the record
Yeah.
for most points in a game, and that was the old class, Jim.
And she's come back to help out. You know, she's coaching with Tom Sawyer, the girls. And,
Yeah.
and you
Yep.
mentioned Brianna Rudolph and Tori Fayetta already, but there was Monique Lee, another standout
Monique Lee.
basketball player from classical. There was Ebony White. She played for. Well, she played for Tech.
Tech.
Oh, I wish we had
Ebony
Buzzy
White.
Barton here because I can't
Yeah.
think of the young lady who played in English, who was a tremendous basketball player.
Catherine Stinson.
No, but scored like 6 touchdowns in the powder puff game.
I just remember Catherine Stinson and Ryan Woom's sister, Deandra,
Yep.
at English. When
Exactly.
Freddie Hogan had those wagons. You know, they did it. They made it to the Garden with that team. They run up against a Braintree team that I think had 2 6'7" players on it. And I don't care, you're not going to beat a team with 2 6'7" girls on it.
That's for sure.
And stop them right in their tracks. I will still say, to me, the best boys basketball player that I have seen with these eyes was Anthony Anderson, Antonio's brother. I don't think there was anything he couldn't do. And one story about Anthony was English was playing Woburn in the sectional semifinal, or it was up in Woburn. I don't know why, because when it got to that point, they were at neutral sites. But this game was at Woburn High, and they were playing Woburn. And Woburn's got these 6'9", 6'10" guys on their team, and they do their warm-ups, and I'm sitting in the stands, and I'm saying, how in the world is English ever going to beat these guys? And then Anthony Anderson leads English out on the court, and all these kids did was run and dunk during the warm-ups, run and dunk, do every Showtime thing they could think to do. And you could see these Woburn kids looking at this and going, Ugh.
Yeah.
And that's how the Reuben kids played. English ran them right off the court. And Anthony was also, I thought he was a pretty good kid too.
I'm looking at another young lady that we didn't mention was a multi-sport athlete at when Classel went on to play big-time college, Paula McGinn.
Paula McGinn,
Was an outstanding female
he's a
athlete.
road runner. She was like the Energizer battery of
Buddy,
those
buddy.
teams. Yeah,
I'm
I was
looking at a
running.
name, Frank, that you could think of that we just had, and we appreciate people are calling in and sending in. We're getting the messages from people watching the show. So you people are drawing people. So shape up here.
What, you got two?
Jeff Walden.
Oh yeah.
Jeff Walden was, he went from St. Mary's to Classical, went to BC, and he was a guy that could have been drafted, and he said, wait until I graduate, then got drafted and came back.
Jeff
He
was,
came very close to making it, you know,
Yeah.
making it to the show. Just kind of missed. Did you put your phone on mute?
I don't
a quick story about Jeff Walden. He, back in the day when the Massachusetts team, state all-star team, we would select them from a number of all-star games. Jeff, 2 years in a row, was selected to be the catcher to play at Fenway Park his junior and his senior year. As a matter of fact, I think through your connections, you may have announced the game at
I
Fenway
had somebody
Park.
who got me an in.
But
Somebody got me an in.
But Jeff, I believe, got, my memory could have failed me. I know he got at least one MVP of the game award. He may have gotten it 2 times in a row. And I believe his senior year, through the same connections, his father had the honor of announcing him in his at-bat at Fenway Park, which,
Yeah.
as a matter of fact, Jerry just told me that the other day, that's still one of his
Didn't he hit one off the wall?
top memories. That I don't remember,
I
but
I was at those games.
But,
I think he hit one off the wall.
You sounded
He
pretty
came-
good, by the
he
way. I
came
was
close.
at one of those games where you announced.
Yeah, well, it was,
All right.
I still thank him, my good friend. He was always a good friend, but he even became better after that because I got to sit where my father sat and announce
Bought
the
that
games
house
for the Red
after that,
Sox.
didn't you?
And I sat,
yeah.
I sat in my father's old chair, and I always thank Frank Carey for giving me that
Jerry.
opportunity.
Well, it's just something for the audience to think about. We had that game at Fenway Park for 10 years, Mass versus Connecticut. And then all of a sudden the team was sold. A new owner came on board named John Henry, and that was the end of the All-Star game at Fenway
A lot
Park.
of things at Fenway Park.
At Fenway Park, and they were more interested in concerts and all of that sort of thing. And it was a shame because through the efforts of Lou Gorman, he was our promoter as such. He's the one that really put the bug in John Harrington's ear about.
And there's no way that you can't fit that game into Fenway Park at
Right.
some point during the year.
Especially where they're bending over backwards for high school hockey in the wintertime.
Yeah,
And I know
yep.
they're not the same sports and everything, but what's the difference? The Red Sox go on the road, you play
Right.
a game in there. I don't
Yep.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what he.
The
Now
other
they're
name I
putting
got here,
concerts
that
in there,
Yeah.
you're right.
people calling in, Eric McGrath, a
Eric
multi-sport,
McGrath's a pretty good,
multi-sport
pretty
athlete.
good player.
Yeah, this.
I can remember
Without-
Eric McGrath when Classical lost their quarterback. We won't talk about why they lost him, but Eric McGrath had to be the new quarterback. And I remember Eric McGrath in the parking lot at Classical High School taking snaps from the center because he was going to be the quarterback
I did
against
that-
Gloucester in the big game
I did that on the bus.
to win the
done that on the
Northeastern
bus.
Conference.
Yeah.
And he had to take over the quarterbacking
Jeez.
duties.
They lost that game, but
Yeah.
it's only because some kid caught a pass when, again, Classical's 2 defenders bumped into each other
Yep.
and fell down.
Yep,
They would have won that game.
they would have.
Yeah, Eric went on a pitch at Trinity
I was gonna say,
College,
he was
I believe.
Double sport athlete.
And, he did quite well out there at Trinity. I'm not sure if I think he may have been on the team when they won the National Division III championship.
was.
Yeah, he was.
Chris Carroll is another one who played. Chris was one of those kids. He played. Chris Carroll. He played hockey when he was a freshman. He had to give up hockey. He played baseball. He played basketball.
Football.
Football. He went on to be a pretty good career at college. He came back and did a nice job
Wonderful job
coaching English high school.
English. Wonderful job. It's
Yeah.
just too, I mean, obviously, you got a young family, you want to be around them. I
Yeah,
get that.
he
but
was
it's-
he was
it's
forced to
shame
retire.
that
That's
he had
a
to-
big loss for England.
Well, I get the feeling when those kids get a little bigger, he might be back. He was a great coach.
He did a good job.
You know,
Well-
Antonio Anderson played football for me. I mean, he went on to, he went to Calipari and coaching, and that stuff. But he in one game, he came in as a quarterback. He threw a touchdown pass, and he caught a touchdown pass in the same game. So, I mean,
And now he's done
quarterback.
he was, and the funny thing is, he shouldn't have been with you, because he was at English first. And he was told, you can't play here, you won't make it here. So he transferred from English to Tech, and all he did after that was win a couple of state
Well,
championships.
that's what
Won a state championship in
Linda
basketball.
Thomas and all those guys.
Yeah, won a
I think
state championship.
Antonio, my memory of Antonio in high school was that Tech had these kids on there. This Streeter kid who was about 9 feet tall.
Right.
You know, he was the.
He was the grandfather
he
clause.
was- Yeah. He drove the bus to the games.
Yeah.
He was,
Yes.
he was their go-to guy. Antonio was on the floor, but
Antonio.
when you saw that team, you saw Streeter.
Yeah.
He was like Kenny Hill in that he bloomed more after he got out than he ever
Yeah.
did while he was there. But boy, I'll tell you, he's got to be in somebody's conversation for something, because it's not his fault Memphis got disqualified. You know, he
That's for
was.
sure, he went to the Final Four.
Yeah, and
The final game.
he was their shutdown defensive forward.
And
that
he
year.
got signed, he went and played
Yeah, right.
in the D-League,
Yeah.
and now we come back and coach and wins back-to-back state championships, and,
Unfortunately, he's left too. But boy,
Did he go to a prep school
Yeah.
or something?
he's destined to coach in college. I just don't see how he can miss.
I don't see how he could miss either.
Mm.
Go ahead, Gary.
Well, I was talking about, English. Mike Zemarowski was probably one of the finest offensive, defensive linemen that came out of English.
Yep.
He went to Holy Cross, had a great career, and now when he came back, he's the vice principal, I believe, at
Yeah.
Classical.
Yep.
No, at Bree.
Uh,
He's at Bree.
Bree.
He's at Bree.
Peter Holy is another one who had a great career with
Yeah.
football,
Right.
moved on, played with Flutie in
Yep.
the Hail Mary game.
Yeah.
That Flutie get, and now he too came back and gave back to the city, becoming a very good, successful coach at English, was a policeman for years and just retired recently, and gave back a lot to the city of Lynn. He's an outstanding gentleman. The whole Holy family did that.
Mm-hmm.
Peter Holy.
I'm gonna rattle off some names of hockey players. We haven't touched hockey at all, but Steve, you might be able to jump in. Frank and Gary are baseball and football, maybe a little basketball, but they didn't know what to do with skates.
Well,
Nice.
obviously,
Jimmy Brown cut me at St. Mary's in hockey. I went to basketball, and Mike Carr cut me in basketball. They were my football coaches.
Well,
So
two
much for
names jump out
nepotism.
at me for hockey. One of them's Tippy Johnson,
Of course.
and the other one is Ernie Carpenter.
Well, Tippy, Ernie Carpenter, and Donnie Spinney
Tony Spinney, yeah.
were probably the best
Yeah.
line of hockey I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And it was funny because Spinney and Carpenter were at English because that was the year the ninth graders couldn't play, and they waited for Tippy to come, and Tippy came, and they won back-to-back state championships. One with Spinney and Carpenter, the other one was just Tippy Johnson. And Tippy, his best
Wasn't
sport.
Andy Filer the goalie on one
Yeah,
of those
yeah.
teams?
Yep,
Yes, he
and
was.
Dom Serino.
Yeah.
Tom Serino.
But Tippy,
Well, I look at Jimmy Dakin. Jimmy Dakin.
Yep, he's on my list.
Yeah.
You got Tippy, whose best sport was hockey.
Yeah.
His second best sport was probably football. I remember a guy coming in, covering for college, wanted to scout Tippy, and he said to me, they were kicking off as he was coming up the stadium at Manning Bowl. And he said to me, which one is Tippy Johnson? I said, there he is. He took the kick off for a touchdown. But He signed for his third sport, which was baseball. 1, 2, 3. Probably because he got a big signing bonus.
When I was down at college at URI in the early '60s, URI was they were known for, they had some very good hockey teams down there. And when they found out I was from Lynn, the first thing the hockey guys all asked me if I knew Tippy Johnson. I didn't know him, being a West Lynner. You know, we didn't know many East Lynners in those days, but
We didn't want to go over there.
yeah. But you know, he was known in Rhode Island. That was a common name at the University of Rhode Island. Tippy Johnson in hockey.
Absolutely. That line.
Tippy could hit a baseball far.
Yeah.
Too. He put one from the big diamond down there at Gallagher Park, right down the end. He put one all the way up out of the park, the other on the street that I live on. According to my cousin, who played for Classical.
He was an outstanding athlete, you know, and he played basketball too. We played Dave Dufour, who was a basketball player, with him, like 6'9", you know, played with him. Eddie Carpenter was also an outstanding basketball player
I knew
in high school.
Yeah, they had a.
They played
Dave
together in the
Jr.
Park League, and I was playing with Dickie Truax, who was a very good baseball player at St. Mary's, and Billy Wazalewski and the Brown twins, and we beat them in the finals in the Lynn Park League. That was my first taste of pizza. The Brown's father took us out to Benny's.
Oh, Benny's. Benny's was great.
On Franklin Street. That was my first taste of pizza. But
I know what you mean, Frank, about the West Lynners not wanting to associate with the East Lynners. There was a wall on Washington Street. You just didn't go. It was like the DMZ or something. Yeah, you just didn't.
Quite a rivalry.
Rush it.
Quite a rivalry.
It's interesting how the line changed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The line changed with Peter Mazarius and Jim Mazarius. They lived on Palfrey Place, which was on the other side, which was across the line, and they came to Classical, and that started.
Yeah.
Everybody the line
Was it-
the line was gone. The line
that-
was
that
gone
was
there.
from East Lynn that
Those are
came
the
to
guys
Classical?
that
well,
actually.
Bobby Healy was
Bobby Healy.
was the first grandmother case.
Yeah.
He was an outstanding basketball player at English. He transferred over, and he was very happy he did, because Merrill Brown was the second one. Bobby Healy was the first one to play with that great team with, you know, Bingham and you know, and Thurman and McGee and those guys that
Primus and those guys,
Primus
yeah.
and those guys that were
Primus.
probably the best team I've ever seen in high school.
And they all played football.
Yeah, and they
played football
talked
for-
about that. You know,
for
when-
Mr.
Well,
Coach Wise.
they won they won a football Super Bowl in '79.
Yep.
They won a state basketball championship in '80. They made the Super Bowl in '80 but lost. And by then, you know, the Thurman was gone, I believe, and it just didn't have the juice in basketball. But for high school, back in those days, that was pretty good. That was about as good as you're going to get.
I remember Billy Wise had Woody Hayes come down to watch these guys for football. He put on like a show. Everybody came in. He had cheerleaders all dressed up. They came in. The coach from Michigan came in, and he was wide. He was running. He was, but at that time, those athletes, and some of them came out of Cobbett, and they had that track around.
Yeah.
And I was doing basketball games, and they would take. I was either McGee or Primus, and they would put their arms up like this, and almost touch the track. And
Yeah.
the guys couldn't get the ball in, and it would be 5 seconds.
Yeah.
It wasn't fair. It was like a slaughter.
we gotta mention a few of these guys in hockey that started outstanding players. Rick Comfort was an outstanding hockey player. Got signed by the Bruins. Had a pretty good career. Come back, and he's worked at Gannon Golf Course, and he had a shop where he helped people out fix their skates, applied
For years, yeah.
hockey sticks and pucks, and he
Took over
and
for Redfoot.
now he does all.
Also, Rick Comfort, to me, his most endearing quality to me was that he kept the most meticulous website
Oh,
on high school hockey. If you wanted to know anything about any game, you went on his website and everything was there for
He
you.
came down to my house yesterday and handed me, it's picture perfect, put together with a block and covered nicely and all put together. He's going to give it to the newspapers. We put in the first team, the second team, the third team, the fourth team with stats and who would be the top, and then who would be maybe honorable mention for hockey.
Really?
He went through all of it, and he keeps all the stats for all of it.
It was terrific. If
He's
you had-
outstanding.
If you had to
outstanding.
cover high school hockey, that was your Bible.
Yeah, you call him.
His website.
Anything you want to know about hockey, you
Yeah,
call Rick
right.
Kim. But, and that's why I've got some of these names, like Larry Plow,
Larry Plow.
played in the '68 Olympics and was drafted by the Canadians. Tommy Rowe, who in a roundabout way my wife is related to because one of the distant relatives, his brother married my wife's nephew or something, and he was the Washington Capitals and the Whalers, and Tippy, of course, signed with the Braves, but he had back-to-back state championships. Bob Dupuy played with the U.S. national team, and Ray Bastorak played at BC. Ronnie Tanner was a great goaltender, won a state championship. Fred Winofsky and his brother. Fred played with the U.S. national team in '58 and '59.
The Winofsky family.
Jim Dakin was an outstanding hockey player and became a
Coach,
very
yeah.
good hockey coach as well. Dougie Anderson,
Oh, yeah.
he was drafted by the St. Louis team. He was a great coach. Went on to coach Bishop Elmer girls and did a great job. Don Farino was the goalie for English state champions. Spinney and Carpenter played with Johnson on the '56 championship team. A guy that most people would not know was an outstanding athlete. And Frank, he played softball, so you probably remember him as well. Jerry Labraza. Jerry Labraza had a deficiency. He only had part of one arm. And people thought, most people like that would just fade into the background. He played football at
played
classical.
football,
He
yeah.
played
Oh, yeah.
baseball at classical. He played hockey. He played big time hockey at college.
Yeah, I see,
He's one of those guys that you can do it. He's a prize example of
Well,
the young kids now who
they
say,
named the award after him, the Iron Man Award
yeah,
at classical football. I just ran into him at Andy's last Saturday. After years and years and years of being a terror on the racquetball court,
Oh,
he not racquetball, handball court. Maybe I don't racquetball, maybe too. I don't know.
handball, I think.
Handball,
Handball.
but he's had to give it up. He's. I used to see him down the Y all the time. He
And he's a-
was a fixture down there.
here's a guy who could have said, I'm angry at everybody. Everybody's got a better chance. I look what I have to put up with. He did. He went on. He worked hard. He became a very good athlete.
Tough as
He's one of
nails.
the nicest
He was
people.
a tough kid.
He's one of the nicest people in the
He is,
world
yeah.
too. Outstanding gentleman.
Yeah, I remember him pitching for Post 6. I used to go to the game when I was a kid, and he would have the glove on his hand and throw the ball, and then reach on. He'd put it under his arm and get it. And I mean, it was not a liability.
Jim Abbott.
Yeah,
Jim Abbott
exactly.
did, yeah.
He was quite an inspiration, actually, as a young kid.
When Jim
To see.
Musketoff came and pitched a couple of games down in Connery, fast pitch, he hit a blast off him in softball. He hit everybody. He wasn't
Yeah.
afraid of anybody.
We've gone this far, and we haven't mentioned a name that I think really deserves to be mentioned, and that's Lou Seropoulos.
I've got him.
You got him, but
He's the first grandmother case, because he started English and wound up at classical,
Classical, yeah.
and he left to go to Kentucky with the old English coach.
But they won a national championship down in Kentucky with him on the team,
Yeah,
and he actually ended up with the Celtics, I think.
Yep.
Eventually,
Yep.
Yeah, he
Yep.
played at the Celtics.
One of his very best friends was always Frank Ramsey. So he belongs.
yeah. I think we mentioned George Buller, but we mentioned Boley Dancer was too. Boley Dancer was
right in the beginning. we did,
outstanding football player. Notre Dame played pro football, and came back and gave back to the city. Became a basketball official, and his son
Was
is an
no slouch either.
outstanding football official. He does
Yeah.
big time college football
Yeah.
games.
My cousin, who's on the Polish side of the family, always claimed that Bowley was a better athlete than Harry. But I always tell him that's the Polish talk.
We got
That's the-
Al Melanson and Andy Fowler, we talked with outstanding goaltenders. They both became,
Al,
Andy Fowler became an outstanding principal in English, Al Melanson, an outstanding coach.
a hockey legend,
for-
Al
yeah,
Melanson.
yeah,
Who was the
a
goalie
great-
at Classical? Sacharowitz? No,
No, Dom Serino was,
no,
Glasgow.
Classical.
and Dwight Ware was an
Oh.
outstanding hockey player.
Yeah, he was.
And went to play at Harvard.
He was with Jimmy Dakin, that team.
And you might mention a few coaches too, you know,
Matt Posca, by the way, was
Ben
a pretty
Foote,
good
Ben
goalie.
Foote wasn't a bad
Ben
hockey
Foote, yeah.
coach. In the Hall of Fame at English.
Mark Lee.
you know,
Remember those
Bob-
jamborees down the old
Yeah, Bob Rowland,
games
Bob
down the
Rowland
North Shore.
was
Roland.
coaching
I never-
English at
I
Marblehead.
like Bob Rowland.
Of course, Mark Lee
Mark
won
Lee.
the state championship. He's won a long-time coach.
Jimmy
at-
Dakin.
you know,
Jay Richards. Remember Jay Richards?
Yeah. A
I
tech.
like,
Looking
I
at-
like Jay Richards.
you know, people around the community, people who know Kirk Bransfield,
Yeah.
John Marsh, Andy Kramer, became a firefighter, gave back to the
Andy
city.
Kramer,
You know, some outstanding people. You know, a lot of great names going back over the many, many years.
You know, John, I'll just interject. When you talked about Larry Plow, I'm not a hockey aficionado, and but a few years back, myself and a few people went up to Montreal to see the Bruins play. And outside of the Bell Center, I think it's called a Bell Center, there's some sort of a display, and it had the names of all of the various hockey players that played on the Canadian championship
Cup
teams.
winning teams.
And I specifically looked for Larry Plow's name, and I felt a little sense of Lynn pride to
Sure.
see his name up
Sure.
there. And I don't remember now if it was on the replica of the Stanley Cup or it was on a marble pedestal, but his name was very noticeable.
You would
there.
also have seen his name on the first ever AFCO Cup, which is what they called the World Hockey Association Championship Trophy. He was on the first Whalers team that won it. He was like their first line center. He was, I mean, you couldn't really tell at that level. At that level, he was very good. You know, he, nice guy too.
I'll give you all, we're closing, we got a couple of minutes left with this. It's been terrific.
It's only 10 minutes off, see?
It's been terrific watching, talking about all these names. We've mentioned quite a few male and female athletes. So I'm sure somebody's going to say, well, if we bump into them on the street, they're going to say, you missed him, you missed her.
Well,
And I'll say, yes, you're right, you should have called in.
Yeah,
But
yeah, that's true.
I'll start with you, Stephen. I'll ask everybody the same question. I think all of us have been blessed one way or the other to get to see, watch, and know all of these people and hear about all these people. And I think Lynn can put themselves up against anybody as far as great athletes over the course of so many years.
I would agree with that. I think Lynn. I think Lynn is first and foremost is a baseball city. It's had some tremendous baseball coaches and baseball players, but I don't think basketball is too far behind. And that's the one I happen to like the most in high school. So I would probably. I've seen it the most. I've seen these kids. I've seen. Unfortunately, there aren't an awful lot of championships to show for it. We have a few, but some tremendous basketball players, and football too. The best athlete to me still is Harry Guinness, and his football speaks for itself, I think. But as somebody who covered it way more than ever played it, one good thing about it, there was always somebody to go and watch. When you recall any time in the last 40 or 50 years that you haven't said, boy, there's somebody somewhere to go and watch. If you have nothing to do on a Friday night, there's always a basketball player, there's always a kid that, geez, I gotta go see him. We've never been without one that I can see.
Frank, being the winningest coach in New England and from a very small school in North Reading, you've had the privilege of not only watching, seeing, and knowing about these people, but you've had a chance to get close to playing with some of these people, coaching some of these people, and through family ties, getting to know families of people. So you've been as close to a slew of athletes in the city of Lynn as anybody has.
Yeah, I would, but if you had to ask me, the premise of the show is the Mount Rushmore, just on reputation, even though I didn't see a lot of them, I would say Aganis in football, Conogliaro in baseball, only because of the levels that they attained. Sharopoulos maybe in basketball, or Antonio Anderson, and in hockey, Larry Plow. And that's because they went on to prominence on a major level. But to agree with you, John, we've had so many great, talented young athletes here in the city. It's a difficult.
It certainly is. It's good to bounce it around because they're always going to, as you always say, you'll say, I think this guy's the best, and somebody's going to say, no, he's not. This guy's better, and that guy's better. And it always brings up a conversation where a friendly argument gets along, and it keeps people getting along with each other and talking to each other. Carrie, go ahead.
Well, thing I think about is in the heyday, maybe 15 years ago, the numbers of the teams were huge. There were 40, 50 kids on a football team, and now down in this day and age, it's hard to get numbers. It's hard to get people. People are involved. They got these little things, these games, and I don't know. It seems like the numbers are going down now, and of course with the COVID, everything was in a limbo, and hopefully it will come back. The way it was when we were around, when we were coaching.
But you've been associated, well, like Frank, you were a coach with a lot of kids. You got to know personally a lot of the athletes and stuff, and you can certainly attest that Lynn is as good as any place for athletes.
It's when you come into the city, you see all kinds of these plaques of state champions, right? The baseball, the football, they still put them up there, don't they? Do they still put them up? I know when you come in.
North Reading, they do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know that. Yeah.
Do they still do it?
I don't.
I've seen the St. Mary's one.
Of them.
I think they should get back to doing it.
I do too. I mean, there's.
Let me tell you, it was a real pleasure coaching in the city of Lynn, because the kids made it easy, because they're so dedicated, and they, if it's not for them, then they don't do it. But the numbers and the kids themselves are so willing to go an extra mile, to do extra work, not complain, but just accept because of their older brothers, their relatives. That's just the way it was, and that's the way it should be.
I think going on what Steve had to say, we don't win a lot of championships. We compete, but of course, a big part of that is that we're one of the few places around that have 4 high schools. Now we have 5. Not to mention we have kids that we talked about. Junior Guy, his son playing now at St. John's Prep. Other people playing other people playing at Bishop Fenwick. And I have to mention, because she just retired, one name we certainly forgot was Colleen Parker Newberry. She just retired.
Yeah.
She was the first ever slap hitter. She played for Bud Henry at Fenwick. She's from Lynn. She was right-handed. He turned her around left-handed. She became the first slapper. She won 4 state championships with Bud Henry, and then she won a 5th championship for Bud Henry because they lost the game in the bottom of the 7th. The girl hit a home run, and it was going to cost Fenwick the game, and they were going for 8 championships. And Colleen went to Bud and said, I think she missed 3rd. They appealed. They called her out. Bud Henry won the game in,
Oh,
Bud
jeez.
Henry won the game in extra innings.
Can you
Made
imagine
her,
them calling that?
made her her fifth state champion.
Enjoy that call.
But, so I had to get
Yeah,
her name in.
Jesus.
But Gary, to get back to your point about the numbers, especially in football, mainly is because now, way back when, football was the premier. Now, with people getting scholarships for soccer and lacrosse and other sports, and they're playing these sports like 52 weeks a year, AAU, and they're spilling over into other things that now they used to play, I'll play 3 sports, I'll play 4 sports. Now they're concentrating on one sport.
That's the
And,
downfall. You
and,
hit
you know,
the nail
and
right on
so
the
now,
You're
I
right.
look now, they've got, the Little
Get
League
fall
programs.
ball, spring ball.
Well, now, Little League baseball is now dwindling because now they started a flag football league for 6 to 10, and they're playing during the Little League season. So you're drawing away from each one, so kids aren't playing.
The big issue.
it's baseball
is
season,
you
it should
hit
be
right-
baseball.
you
Yeah,
hit it
right,
on the
right.
head.
If it's baseball season, it should be baseball.
Yep.
Is that there are no more, or there are fewer and fewer multi-sport athletes in high schools.
And now with,
That's because
with AAU sports now, they're
You gotta-
concentrating on
kids gotta
only
make a
one
decision.
sport.
Yeah.
It's
And
lousy.
people who would play football and basketball and baseball are now playing one sport, and that cuts the numbers down.
Of course,
as well.
that's the stupidest thing, because, boy, Dick Geron played 3 sports, and it didn't do him any harm.
No, and
You know,
all of these
Tony
kids are not
C.
going to go
Tony
play
C.
the outfield for the New York Yankees.
Mm.
You know, it might, these other sports might get them a scholarship into college.
not only that,
Just-
because you have a different set of friends. You get your football people, you get your baseball people, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it should- yeah.
You have different
It-
friends.
It certainly,
Not everybody plays football, not everybody plays baseball,
it
but you
should-
have a different set of friends, and
It should-
the school becomes more together. Because
should-
everybody knows each other then.
it certainly expanded your sports program. Frank, I'll give you the last few minutes.
Well, just a word to the young people, if they're out there, if you happen to be bored and watching the show, I can tell you from my own perspective as a high school coach, and I still deal with college coaches on a fairly regular basis, that the one thing they all profess is that they look at 3 sport athletes and they're not that interested in that kid that plays baseball all year from fall to spring, AAU and all of that. They want to watch a kid playing in other sports. There's value to that. If you're the kid on the foul line with 2 seconds to go and you got to make 2 foul shots, you can translate that over into baseball and whether you can pitch under pressure. So for you young guys out there, play all your sports, enjoy all your sports, because the college coaches that are out there are going to be looking at you in your other sports for certain characteristics.
I thank you all for coming. You really made it a nice night. It's a shame that Rick Comfort and Paul Harrowan couldn't have made it. They had bona fide excuses, and I hope everything is well with both of them. And Frank, I thank you for coming under difficult times for you with your significant other. But I thank you people for being here. We've been together for a very long time. We've all watched outstanding sports and sports people through the city of Lynn, both male and female. And it's been I'm into my 40th year on television doing these games. And I've watched people from Little League to Babe Ruth to high school to college, and then come back and mingle in the city and become policemen, firemen, teachers, coaches, principals. It's been a great thrill for me to meet and greet all of these people and get associated with so many great people. It's made me a lot of great friends, and 3 of them are sitting right here, and I thank them for being here. I thank you for watching, and I'm John Hoffman saying we'll see you next time.
What's going on with it?
I don't know which one of those 3 cameras.